on. I am the impossible! That was for my ice cream. KO!
Oh my god! Oh my god! What's up YouTube? Tenton here, and today I will be discussing the next time on Death Battle between Zuko from Avatar and Shoto Todoroki from My Hero Academia. But before we get on to that, let us discuss episode 130. I'll be honest, starting off with a loss sucks, but it was a good reminder to never downplay any character. My prediction covered a lot of information, and in terms of production quality, I'm very proud of it. However, I fell into a trap that a lot of other YouTubers fell into. I was not all that familiar with Galaxia, so I took a lot of what other YouTubers said, and what the Death Battle Discord said. Nemesis and the Raptor in particular are usually great sources for information on characters I'm not familiar with. Galaxia had a lot of hacks according to what I had heard, and their videos only backed that up. When making the video, I took that information to heart. I figured that her hacks alone would do Beerus in. Then, slowly over the next week, all her hacks was slowly debunked, and I, along with the Raptor and Nemesis, were left in a pretty bad situation. 2 plus 2 does not in fact equal fish, ladies and gentlemen. I also really should have chosen my words carefully. I got so many stinking comments about that one line. Let me be abundantly clear. Beerus clearly does not just have planet-level durability. I listed it as an absolute minimum. I also, in the same video, listed how he and Goku sent shockwaves across the entire universe. I should have just listed out Beerus' max durability, that way my words couldn't be misinterpreted. Going forward, I will likely still rely on others for certain information, but I'm going to double check to make sure that information from what I know is accurate. So yeah, I was wrong. Oh well, just try to learn from it and get them next time. If this fight does one thing right though, it further takes a dump on Dragon Ball fanboys' argument that they hate the show. Vegeta, Hercule, 18, Roshi, and Beerus have all won. 5 wins to 3 losses. Dragon Ball Z over its whole history on the show, at the worst, had a 25% win rate. Now it comfortably sits at a 62.5% win rate, one of the best performing series in the show's history. Well, that's all I got to say on the last time. Now, let's hope I can get the next one right. I mean, I wouldn't want another prediction with 12,000 views being inaccurate. Seriously, thanks for watching it, guys, dear God! On to the next time, Zuko vs. Shoto is a fight that I've seen requested for years. It's not that old of a request, mostly due to My Hero Academia being a relatively new series. I'm honestly surprised that Death Battle chose to use Shoto so early though. His story isn't over, and last season they mentioned that All Might was only used because his journey was pretty much over. So while I'm surprised to see Shoto getting an episode so soon, especially considering his max potential is still likely yet to have been seen, I'm still glad they decided to do the fight. I'm a big fan of Zuko, and any chance to get more Avatar characters on the show is a plus for me. I wasn't as familiar with My Hero Academia, well, until last Friday when I randomly decided to start watching the show. You can imagine my surprise on Sunday when I saw the next time. At that point, I had only seen the first 12 episodes, so I either had to spoil any Todoroki-related plot points, or I could binge the show and try to find as much information as possible for this prediction. Considering the date this was uploaded, I think you can guess what I decided to do. I want to make this clear. My knowledge on Todoroki is based off the first 3 seasons of the show. The last episode I watched was the episode in which Deku decides to start using his legs instead of his arms for combat. Anything after that point I've only heard of because of the Death Battle Discord, like Shoto getting an upgrade for his suit that regulates the temperature of his body. Zuko, on the other hand, is a character I know pretty well. I grew up with the show, and I've even used Zuko in my own Versus series. Let me just say that Zuko's episode was one of the most fun matchups I've ever had to debate, and I really recommend watching it. Or, well, reading it in this case, since that was before I was comfortable enough to use my voice all the time. Regardless, that's enough shameless promotion. Let's get into this. The theme of this episode is a fight between two teenage boys who have scars on their face because of their fathers, even though, Shoto technically got a scar from his mom, but, his dad drove her cuckoo bananas, so it's kind of still his fault. You get the point. Oh yeah, and they both use fire. Unlike with most elemental matches, these two actually have something in common, and despite popular belief, Shoto was not inspired by Zuko. It was all just a coincidence according to the show's creator. Theming aside, I have a lot to say about both of them, so let's begin. It was interesting to look back on my previous research on Zuko. Stats-wise, Zuko doesn't have a lot of notable strength feats. He did create a giant explosion when clashing with Aang in Season 1 of the show. He also kicked a boulder out of midair and broke a metal chain with a kick. Some would argue you could scale Zuko to some of Aang's feats. For argument's sake, let's do that. The rock Aang kicked, according to Death Battle, weighed 9,427.38 tons. But just as an FYI, Zuko can't scale to any Avatar state feats, due to Aang gaining the previous experience and power of all the other Avatars while he's in this state. If we also compare Zuko to Aang's lightning reaction feats, then he would need to be moving at roughly 155 times the speed of sound. Zuko has blocked lightning from Ozai as well, so Zuko is certainly comparable to Aang in this regard. Durability is a bit harder to judge, but again, he survived massive explosions, and he survived his own ship blowing up in his face. On the durability scale, I'd say Zuko is around a big building level to, say, street level. I could realistically see it being even higher, but based on the feats I've seen, I'd see that as high as I would realistically put Zuko, at least for now. Zuko was trained from a young age by the best royal money can buy. Zuko was also trained in the ways of the blade. Two of them, actually. Zuko is also skilled in stealth, as seen during his time as the Blue Spirit. Zuko has also shown he possesses a keen eye for traps, but when he really needs to cut loose, Zuko busts out his bread and butter: firebending. Zuko, being born as the Prince of the Fire Nation, is skilled with manipulating and controlling all types of fire. Firebending is also an extension of his martial arts, based on Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. Firebending is the most aggressive bending type, focusing on offense over defense. Zuko, using his firebending, can create fireballs, fire blasts, whips made of fire, and fire daggers. Some firebenders can even fly while using the technique. Now, Zuko has never done this himself, but it is reasonable that he potentially could. Zuko, tactics-wise, is not the best in the fly and will often rush into a situation without a plan, like the time he caught Aang at the North Pole or when he tried to free Aang's Sky Bison.
You never think these things through. This is exactly what happened when you captured the Avatar at the North Pole. You had him, and then you had nowhere to go.
I would have figured something out.
No! If his friends hadn't found you, you would have frozen to death.
Zuko has certainly grown since then, and he's not an idiot, but he is no master tactician. Firebending can also be used to survive Arctic conditions, and firebending is more powerful during the daytime when the sun is out. Now, there are two big questions I have for Zuko when concerning the fight. Zuko has the ability to redirect lightning, and only the most skilled firebenders can actually generate lightning. Zuko is certainly up there on that list, but he has never done it in canon. Not in the show, comics, Korra, nothing. So is it fair to give Zuko the ability to generate lightning? I'd say no. I generally only give characters questionable powers if there is little reason to doubt they would be able to do it. Even if Zuko could, he has no known experience doing it, so he's more likely to shock himself than hitting Todoroki with lightning. Up next is everyone's favorite 100-year event, Sozin's Comet. The comet drastically boosts a firebender's power to nearly double or even triple what they could do in an average day. It would certainly help Zuko's odds of winning, but that is such an ass pull, and we all know it. The Death Battle team is supposed to be impartial, so giving Zuko a once-in-100-year event to power him up is so far past that line we might as well let Batman fight Black Panther again while having Superman's powers. It happened for one day, so why not? The comet puts Zuko on a power level that is just not accurate to his day-to-day life. It would frankly be a poor representation of the character as a whole. Lastly, before we move on to Shoto, Zuko has beaten Sokka in a sword fight, he beat Katara at the North Pole, he fought Jet to a standstill, he beat Admiral Zhao and Agni Kai, and he was able to fight off Aang and Azula at the same time. From one Fireboy to another, Shoto is up next. Shoto, stats-wise, is not directly superhuman, at least not in his punching force. Todoroki does know some hand-to-hand, and he can fight up close, but he, generally speaking, prefers to keep at his distance, and fisticuffs really aren't his thing. However, the force he can deal with his elemental attacks is just crazy. In his first fight in the tournament of Season 2, he created a massive piece of ice that was the size of half a stadium. People have calculated this to be around 100 kilotons of TNT, and in Season 3, he makes an ice blast similar to this casually. Todoroki speed-wise scales to Deku and Bakugo dodging lightning, though his durability was easily the most interesting topic for me to calculate. He took hits from Bakugo, who can create massive explosions, and he survived a fall off a cliff with no major injuries. But the most impressive durability feat on his record is during Season 2 when he took multiple 5% punches from Deku. Since Death Battle has already used All Might, it's reasonable to scale Todoroki to 5% of his feat. Now, some people might question this since Deku is far less experienced and trained when compared to All Might, but in All Might's own assessment of Deku, he specified that Deku at most could handle 5% of his power, and Deku straight up states that 100% of his power is equal to all of All Might's power. The punch that All Might used to change the weather is calculated in his prime to come out to 1,462.8 gigatons. After doing the proper math, 5% of this feat equals 73.14 gigatons. FYI, a gigaton is equal to 1 billion tons. So this feat comes out to 73.14 billion tons of force. Moving on to his power set, Todoroki's quirk allows him to control both fire and ice. Todoroki in the first episode in which he fights casually freezes a 3 to 4 story building. He also took down a group of villains while he was still a novice. It has also been stated that his fire and ice are equal in power, so any amount of force he can do with his ice, he can also do with his fire. Though Todoroki is less experienced using his fire due to him neglecting it for most of his life out of spite for his dad. Overtaxing one side of his body will start to hurt Shoto. If he uses too much ice, he'll give himself frostbite, and if he uses too much fire, he will burn himself. Luckily for him, using his fire after his ice, or vice versa, can negate these issues. The two sides essentially cancel out each other's weaknesses, assuming Todoroki balances out his usage. He can use his quirk in a variety of ways. He can create ice shields, armor. He can use the ice to fly and to increase his mobility. He can use it to control the battlefield and force an opponent into a corner. He can also use his ice to immobilize foes, and his suit was upgraded to help regulate the temperatures of his body during combat. Todoroki defeated the tape hero guy. He beat Ida, Deku, and with the help of Deku and Ida, he was able to beat Stain, the hero killer. Now, to be fair, Stain was fighting rather rashly, and he wasn't actually trying to kill Todoroki and Deku due to them meeting his ideology of what a hero should be. He still, however, managed to knock him out and immobilize his body. Even after getting up, Stain only had enough energy left in his body to do one quick attack before he passed out again. Shoto played a mostly defensive role in that fight, but to his credit, he was the only person out of the three of them to never have his blood licked. Long story short, if this guy licks your blood, it will completely immobilize your body, leaving you helpless. Which is actually how he killed a lot of the heroes, considering his quirk is just so inherently broken in a one-on-one fight. But to Todoroki's credit, he was the only one to never have that happen to him, and he got out of this fight pretty unscathed with only minor injuries. He also passed his final exam in which he had to immobilize his teacher, who could literally just take his powers away. I think I can say this pretty definitively, Todoroki is going to win. This fight is kind of obvious when you look at the numbers. Zuko's only real advantages are his experience and maybe his speed, since his lightning feat is far easier to quantify since it isn't from scaling. But power-wise, Shoto destroys him, and Todoroki's defense is just insane when compared to Zuko. 73 billion tons versus a guy who survived a ship exploding. Shoto also has plenty of experience with people who can manipulate fire. Bakugo's power is explosions, but it's similar enough, and he's been trained by his father his whole life. He also has experience fighting against people who use swords as well. Shoto's world is just filled with all kinds of crazy people with hundreds to thousands of different powers. Meanwhile, Zuko's world is far more limited and straightforward. Zuko has never had to deal with an opponent that can create ice and fire on the same level that Shoto can. That raw power is just too much for Zuko to handle. In the end, Todoroki's raw power, defense, versatile power set, and adaptability will win him this fight. Even when looking at the best waterbenders in his series, none of them have shown the ability to manipulate ice like Todoroki can, especially not with the same speed and power that he can effortlessly do this. Again, made this casually. This fight is a wrap. But what do you guys think? Are you backing Zuko, or are you rooting for Todoroki like myself? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. This has been Tenton. Peace.